So what are we on with the Tim Walz? How are we doing with the right wing's desperate effort to smear him? So we went with Tampon Tim to begin with, which immediately got picked up and made fun of by everyone because it was psychotic, you know. Now we have the stolen valor line. I talked about this a little bit the other day, but I think it's probably important to go over this just because it's going to be one of their like chosen smears. So Tim Walz was a National Guardsman for 24 years. Back in 2018, when he ran for governor, a person who was in his Minnesota National Guard unit came out and wrote an article against him, along with another veteran, saying that Tim Walz was a coward. Here. When Minnesota Governor Tim Walz chose to leave the military on the eve of his deployment to Iraq, we love to duck out of the National Guard right before we get sent into one of America's most unpopular wars. Thomas Behrens went in his place. I needed to hit the ground running and take care of the troops and tell them we were going to war, Behrens said of the 500 soldiers under his command. For a guy in that position, to quit is cowardice. So yeah, after 24 years of service, Walz retired from their Minnesota National Guard unit just before being deployed to Iraq, which, again, incredibly based. When your country calls, you're supposed to run into battle, not the other way, the retired command sergeant major told the Post Tuesday. He ran away, it's sad. So, I don't want to pretend that I'm like crazy familiar with veteran culture, because I'm not, but I really think that if you've served for 24 years and you are 41 years old, retiring is not running away. You are actually allowed to quit the military. It's not like a gang where you're in there for life. You are, you can actually leave. You're allowed to leave. You're not supposed to be there forever. 41 is, I mean, he was in the National Guard for more than one half of his lifetime. He enlisted when he was 17. A real veteran, somebody who actually respects the troops, and I'm saying this seriously without a hint of irony in my voice, would respect the decision of somebody who had been in the National Guard for that long to retire. A National Guardsman is someone, you know, they're meant to stay in the States. They're a National Guardsman. Why the fuck would they want to be deployed to Iraq? Maybe he didn't agree with the war. We know he didn't agree with the war because he entered Congress and then tried to fight to end the war. He deserved the retirement. Based ass grandpa? Yeah. Anyway, want to know the reason why Behrens is so salty? Because he was the guy who replaced Tim Walz. When Democratic vice presidential pick Tim Walz retired to the from the National Guard on the eve of his battalion's deployment to Iraq in 2005, Tom Behrens, above, and of course he looks like a thumb, took his place as command sergeant major overseeing 500 troops. So basically, this guy got saddled with the shit work of being in a command position in Iraq. He's just salty that he got put in that position, frankly. He wanted to be... personally, my guess is that Tim Walz was like a dad to this guy, and he still, you know, why'd you run out for cigarettes? I'm telling you. On May 16th, 2005, Walz quit, betraying his country. This is... I genuinely mean... I'm saying this from the perspective, not of a leftist, but like I'm trying to get you the regular guy angle on this. This is like anti-veteran language right here. You're betraying your country by leaving after 24 years? Holy shit. So like every veteran then betrayed their... Most veterans have not been in for 25 years plus. This is insane. Like, no, sorry, motherfucker. This is a gang. You're gonna die here. Jesus. Leaving the 125th Field Artillery Battalion and its soldiers hanging without its senior non-commissioned officer as the battalion prepared for war. Behrens and fellow retired guardsman Paul Hare wrote in a letter posted to Facebook during Walz's first gubernatorial run in 2018. There you go. Yeah. That's Tim Walz. You can tell because he looks like Tim Walz at a training facility in Wyoming in 1992. Although he served in the National Guard for more than 2 decades, he has said he never saw combat. Yeah. It's the National Guard. Do you know where the National Guard are supposed to be? Do you know what they... National Guard. They're supposed to be here. Idiot. Behrens and Hare wrote that Walz could have requested permission from the Pentagon to seek congressional office while on active duty. Nope, sorry. 24 years isn't enough. More than half of your lifetime, 60% of the time that you've been alive in the military, that's not enough, okay? You have to stay here forever. Don't leave, Dad. Don't leave. When Walz left the unit, He offered to raise funds to cover his fellow soldiers' bus trips home for Christmas. A gesture that was seen as a cynical ploy by some of them, according to Behrens. If it were me, I would feel guilty about leaving and do something to make up for it. But if you ask me, he was doing it to buy votes? You buy raising money to pay for your unit's bus trips home for Christmas. That's the buy vote strat. Incredible. I'm telling you 100%. This entire scandal right now, which, by the way, this is what they have on Tim Walz. It's gotten to the point where J.D. Vance, a war journalist who never saw real combat, is accusing him of stolen valor. That's how desperate they are for anything against Tim Walz. Stolen valor. That's what we're on now. That's the level this has reached. They're flailing. Unbelievable. My guess, genuinely, is that this Behren guy is just another thumb vet, you know, just some dipshit fail son nobody who misses his dad, Tim Walz, in the unit and got really upsetty spaghetti when Tim was like, yeah, I don't want to be here literally forever. Please let me leave before I get deployed to Iraq for no reason whatsoever. And he wrote a Facebook post about it. He's still seething, and that's it. That's it. The unit spent 17 months in Iraq and suffered 3 casualties, including Kyle Miller, a 19-year-old from Wilmar Min. Damn, I guess they shouldn't have been in Iraq, you know? Abject failure, Walz is a traitor, vote him out. And that was put there by, yep, Tom Behrens. That's right. It's the same guy. Why'd you leave, Dad? This guy's dedicated his entire life to telling the world that 24 years in the National Guard wasn't enough. He's so salty. He is. Anyway, let's take a look at how this has been picked up.
Never gone to law school. I grew up in a poor family. The fact that Tim Walz wants to turn it into a bad thing, that I actually worked myself through college, through law school, and made something myself, to me, that's the American dream. And if Tim Walz wants to insult it, I think that's frankly pretty bizarre. Now, look, what really bothers me about Tim Walz, it's not even the positions that he's taken, though certainly.
Why does he always look like he has the raccoon scene girl eye makeup on?
He has been a far-left radical. You know what really bothers me about Tim Walz as a Marine who served his country in uniform? When the United States Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service.
He was in the military for 4 years, and he didn't see combat. He went into Iraq long after the fighting was over, and he spent his entire time in that country getting Eiffel Towered by his fellow servicemen, a practice which I respect and think is a time-honored tradition of the United States military, but it's not 24 years in the National Guard, no sir.
When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with.
Incorrect. It's one guy, or 2 guys, I suppose. That's it. It's literally just 2 guys from his unit. That's it. He wasn't in the Army. Wait, did he say Army?
I think it's shameful. Tim Walz was asked by his country, Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful to prepare your unit to go to Iraq, to make a promise that you're going to follow through, and then to drop out right before you actually have to go. I also think it's dishonest. Something, again, if you guys ever get an opportunity to ask Tim Walz or Kamala Harris some questions, he made this interesting comment that the Kamala Harris campaign put out there, and I bet they're regretting they put it out there now, because he said that and he was making a point about gun control, he said we shouldn't allow weapons that I used in war to be on America's streets. Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone?
This is an incredibly pathetic, dishonest, and flailing attempt to get anything on Tim Walz, and it's being fueled almost entirely by one, failure of a member of his unit who just won't let shit go. They just can't accept the fact that Dad left, and that's how life is sometimes. I do hope that the Democrats respond really aggressively to this, by the way, because this is potentially a very dangerous front for the right. Veterans are not like a super right-wing bloc in general, but there are a lot of veterans who don't vote or who kind of like are burnt out. And I genuinely think the line of "you're a traitor to your nation, even if you serve for 24 years, just because you didn't kill babies in Iraq" is pretty psychotic. Iraq is not a popular war at all. The average politician these days distances themselves from their support of the Iraq war if they were around to have supported it, which statistically speaking they were if they were around in 2003. You know, the average American thinks we shouldn't have gone into Iraq. So to run with the line of like, yeah, 24 years wasn't enough, you also needed to go do an unpopular war, like that, I hope the Democrats effectively get on that, you know? God willing. J.D. Vance has literally criticized the Iraq war in the Senate. Well, everyone does now. Yeah, everyone does now. It's easy to now. But then, back then, no, not so much. There's another thing where he called himself like a retired officer of some kind, where he was the officer, but he didn't retire with the formal title of that officer because he hadn't been in it for long enough, or he hadn't gotten the paperwork to that effect or something like that. I don't know. It's all a big nothing burger. Walz had been considering leaving for some time. No, you don't understand, man. It's actually, you're a traitor to your nation. You have to be in forever. You have to die in there. Especially because he went and he continued being a public servant, you know? As a congressman. Oh, God, was this the rally where he spoke there? Oh, God. Oh, God. Look at this. This is a running vice presidential candidate. Oh, my God. And yeah, they're all press. There's no actual people here. Was this open to the public? Yes. They're right outside a police station. Yeah, anyone could have showed up. Nobody did. That's crazy. J.D. Vance is speaking now in Wisconsin. Oh, God. This is even more dire.
I like the people of this country. I like people who work hard and play by the rules. I like people.
He looks like this is the crowd that you would get running for like a city council position, or maybe like state legislature.
Work, they do it, and they do it right here in this factory, and the people behind me do it every single day. And I think that to lead this country, you should feel some gratitude for it, and you should feel some admiration for the people who actually make the country run. And I will say sometimes I hear Kamala Harris, and she talks about the history of this country, and she likes to put it down a little bit. I don't know that she actually admires the people who work in this factory. I hope that she does, but I don't really see that gratitude. I don't really hear that gratitude when she speaks. I certainly do, and I think that that's one of the reasons why I'd make a good vice president, is because I actually care about the people standing behind.
Dude, the people around him really do not look like they want to be here. They look like their boss told them. They look like their boss donated $20,000 to Trump's reelection, and he told them they'll be fired if they don't show up here, basically.
Walz has said that he cannot wait to debate you. Your reaction to that, and is there one
Look at this. Ugh.
issue that you would really like to debate him on?
Minneapolis here. We're trying to focus on Wisconsin, but I'm sure your reach, I guess, spreads across the border, so we'll answer the question. Look, I think I want to debate Governor Walz because nothing to do with Governor Walz, but because the American people deserve to see the people who want to be their vice president stand before them and try to persuade them. And it's one of the things that's really frustrated me about Kamala's campaign is that she seems totally uninterested in actually talking to American voters and persuading them. If there's a single issue around which I think Governor Walz has to answer when it comes to his record, this is a guy who says that he stands for public safety, but actively encouraged the rioters who burned down Minneapolis. And I think that if you want to say you stand for public safety, you cannot look the American people in the eye and say, well, I welcome the people who caused $13 billion of damage to Minneapolis because I encouraged them to burn my city to the ground rather than exercise some basic self-control.
Never forget that in Minneapolis, the police precinct that was burnt down, it was burnt down by a Trump supporter. Ivan Harrison Hunter, a Texas right-wing extremist, bragged about helping to set the fire on the Minneapolis police precinct and was seen shooting into the building as it burned. Yeah, never forget. The main thing that people cite when they talk about Minneapolis burning under Tim Walz is this. This was done by a Trump supporter, a race rioter who came here to agitate following George Floyd's murder.
And as I understand it, Wisconsin has actually stopped that, and kudos to Wisconsin for stopping that, because that's ridiculous. You cannot have private billionaires who own social media companies buying up public boards of elections, influencing public boards of elections. And again, as I understand it, that stopped. So I see a lot of reason to be optimistic about the election in Wisconsin. Of course, President Trump and I want there to be a free and fair election because we want every legal vote to count. That's the hallmark of America's constitutional republic, is that everybody's vote has to count. But for everybody's vote to count, everything has to be safe and secure. I feel a lot of confidence about Wisconsin, but certainly as a campaign, we're going to continue to monitor things. We're going to continue to make sure that people are doing things the right way. And I think the voters of Wisconsin should have some confidence that the Trump campaign is on top of this stuff and focused on this stuff. And we think we're going to have a great election in Wisconsin, and I think we're going to win. Sir.
WKOW Eau Claire. As you know, Kamala Harris is also speaking in Eau Claire right now with her new running mate, Tim Walz.
Is she?
Why did you choose to speak here in Eau Claire today, the same time as Harris?
Well, we wanted to make sure there was a contrast, in part because...
oh, please, directly juxtapose yourself when you're talking in this barren factory room when compared to the thousands of people that are currently, right now, at the rally waiting for her to speak. As I am, Kamala.
Media has been so dishonest about Kamala Harris's record, and in part because they refused to ask her questions, we wanted to make sure that there was at least somebody out there providing an alternative story. We have to remember, President Trump delivered a closed border and rising wages. What has Kamala Harris delivered? A promise to defund the police, a promise to ban fracking and offshore drilling, a promise to destroy the American energy sector, a promise to increase the prices of the goods that the American people rely on. She has not.
That's so true, man. Remember when Kamala Harris was like, we're going to make things cost more? I remember that.
Fired, and that's what we're here talking to people about, because the media needs to tell the other side of the story. And unfortunately, I think unless you have somebody here, they're not.
Scott Ritter's house getting raided by the FBI. No, did he? A 14-year-old girl who turned out to be an undercover cop again? A third time? Scott Ritter at the water cooler of like pedophile Russophiles Incorporated, you know? Yeah, so I've been talking to this 14-year-old girl. You're not going to believe what she told me. She told me she's a police officer. How cool is that for somebody her age, huh? This is the third time this has happened.
I'm going to do that. Ma'am?
We've heard a lot from Democrats using the word weird, calling you weird, calling former President Trump weird. What do you make of that weird argument?
I think that the weird argument honestly came from a bunch of 24-year-old social media interns who were bullied in school, and they decided they're going to project that on.
Oh, please, JD Vance, go for the like, haha, they're the nerd, we're the jock line when you're up against Tim Walz. Please.
To the entire Trump campaign. And the reason it doesn't make sense is because you ask who's weird, right? I think it's pretty weird to be the border czar and to open up the border and allow fentanyl to come into your community.
Oh my God, they have nothing. They can't engage with it at all because he doesn't even know what normalcy looks like. He can't do any of the like, none of the like American aphorisms or any of the reassuring familiarity that you would get from someone. Like no trustworthiness. All he can do is repeat the same talking points. Lizard person.
I think it's pretty weird to try to take children away from their parents.
You mean like Trump did at the border with the child separation policy that he like deliberately did for no reason just to hurt people?
If the parents don't want to consent to sex changes, that's something that Tim Walz did. I think it's pretty weird.
No, it is not. They love saying shit like that, and then you look at the actual story, and it's like the father of a trans kid was monstrously abusive, and then there was a court order to, like, tell the father to not do that shit, and the father denied it, so the kid got taken away. Like, every time you look at it, and it's explicit, obvious child abuse from the worst humans alive. It's never the court ordering that you have to, like, cut the dick off a 10-year-old, or you lose your kid or whatever. That's never happened.
To want to defund the police. I think it's pretty weird to pretend that you're a tough on crime prosecutor, even though you pursued the policies that made San Francisco such a disaster when it comes to crime and public safety. So if they want to call me weird, look, I've got my wife here. I've got 3 beautiful kids at home. I'm a normal guy.
Your wife, who you apologized for her not being white, you were asked, hey, you know, there are some Republicans who are concerned about the race of your wife. And he was like, I know she's not white, but she's still pretty cool.
Who wants to live the American dream and wants all of you and your kids to be able to live the American dream. That's why I'm in it. If those people want to call me weird, I think it's a badge of honor. Ma'am.
Hope with Wisconsin Public Radio. Farmers in Wisconsin and other agricultural states are increasingly relying on foreign guest workers for seasonal labor. How does your immigration policy accommodate or address that need?
Well, look, I think that the reason why we have an economy that is more and more reliant on guest workers, and frankly not just guest workers, but also a lot of illegal labor, is because the Harris administration has invited in 20 million people to be here illegally.
Guest workers aren't illegal. They're not. You're not talking about, the question wasn't about illegal immigrants. The question was about exploiting immigrant. What? That's a different. Like no answer, just always like fall in the Harris administration. Yeah, because they're pretending Biden doesn't exist.
When I talk to farmers, they don't want to hire illegal aliens. They would.
Then why do they keep doing it? Because it costs less.
Actually like to hire American workers and people who are lawful residents, but you cannot have a system that works for American farmers when you have 20 million people coming in here illegally. And
then why do the farmers get, oh, I just accidentally kept hiring people who I can abuse and underpay. Why do the farmers keep doing that then? Is it an accident?
By the way, a lot of them are competing with Wisconsin workers and Wisconsin people for jobs, driving down wages, making it harder for Wisconsinites to live the American dream.
Oh, so the farmers, oh, so it is a wage thing. The farmers do want to hire the illegal immigrants. Okay. Then why'd you say they don't want to? See, this is one of those fracture points. On one hand, Republicans want to be racist against Mexicans. On the other hand, farmers, who are a huge base of support for the Republican Party, rely on underpaying and abusing immigrant laborers. So how do you like reconcile these? They love cheap labor. They love cheap illegal labor, you know? So how do you simultaneously promote a policy of widespread deportation that would cripple our economy, by the way, while also appealing to people who benefit from the immigrants?
That is a scandal. And
remove child labor laws. That is something they've been doing. Yes. One of the solutions that Republicans have pushed is that in many red states, they have been trying to weaken child labor laws, allowing children to work younger, longer hours, and have fewer safety protections. Yeah.
That is a disgrace. The thing I really believe about our farmers is they need access to big markets. They want to export food all over the world, and that's the way to build food security for the American people, is to allow our farmers to export all over the world.
Food security for the American people is when we when we export? What is that? What does any of this mean?
For the first time, basically in the history of this country, we are now a net importer of food. That means we no longer have the food security that America had for over 200 years.
Yeah, because we export a ton of it. That's what happens when you mass export a resource. What?
Like Wisconsin farmers and American farmers to get back to being the bulwark of the entire world food supply, because it means America's food supply.
That's the exporting. That's what the exporting is. That's what export is, when the food goes out. Import is when the food comes in. If you export the food isn't here for people to eat it. That's how it works. If you're a net exporter of food, that means you export more than you take it. We export a lot of food. America is a breadbasket. You export the surplus. If we're exporting, we have the food. It's good. We don't want America's economy to be tied up entirely in agriculture, which is very space and resource inefficient when it comes to money production. There's a reason why, like, agriculture is a 10,000-year-old industry. We should be making microchips.
It's safe, and that's what the Kamala Harris administration has destroyed. Ma'am.
Hi, Kelly Milan, Spectrum News. Mr. Vance, recently you, after being picked for VP, you said my attitude is it doesn't really matter as much as this hits my ego, and then Trump recently said it makes no difference. Do you think it matters that Harris chose Walz, and why?
I think it matters about what it says about her. Right? And I think that when President Trump selected me, what he was saying is, I want somebody who's going to fight for workers. I want somebody who's going to push back against the Chinese efforts to build the American middle class on the tops of the, he's going to push back against the Chinese effort to build the Chinese middle class on the back of the American middle class.
Extremely loud, incorrect red buzzer, please.
And I want somebody who's going to push back against this crazy border policy of Kamala Harris. What does Kamala Harris's selection of Tim Walz say about her? Well, I think it says, one, she's leaning into the defund the police radicalism of the last few years. Two,
that's so true, man. That's definitely a real thing that's happening in the real world, you know? Point to anywhere where they've defunded the police. I'll wait. Tim Walz, I'm pretty sure, presided over an increase in state funding to Minnesota's National Guard.
She's leaning into the open borders policies the last few years. This is a guy, Tim Walz, who wanted to give driver's licenses to illegal aliens, facilitating the flow of illegal immigration instead of stopping it. And then the final point that I'd say is it says that she bent the knee to the Hamas caucus of the Democrat Party. Whatever your views on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and obviously he's not in my political party, he's criticized me, I criticized him. The amount of...
They're going with they're anti-Semitic for not going with Josh Shapiro, even though the Democratic Party has a bunch of Jewish people in it, and the Republicans have basically none, and also they're full of Nazis.
Rage that you heard from the far left saying Kamala Harris can't pick this guy because he's Jewish is disgraceful.
That's true. That is a real thing that they said that I heard. Definitely not because, you know, he's a corrupt prosecutor who like presided over the cover-up of a murder and also is a monstrous, like, you know, genocide abetting Zionist.
I want my kids to grow up in a country where they can be whatever they want to be and people aren't attacking them for their ethnic heritage, and that's somehow considered acceptable. It's not just that they said it was acceptable. It's not just what these people said about Shapiro. It's the way that the Harris administration and the Harris campaign refused to push back against it. I think it's a real scandal.
Trump has denounced Project 2025 in its entirety. Is that something that you completely agree with, that Project 2025 and the policy proposals, with everything,
Sure.
every part of it? Do you disagree with all of it?
Well, I think what President Trump said is that Project 2025 does not represent the agenda of the Trump campaign, and it doesn't. Donald Trump.
No. He distanced himself from it completely because of how optically damaging it is. He said that he didn't know who made it, didn't know anything about it, that the ideas in it were crazy.
Represents the agenda of the Trump campaign. He's a very smart guy. He already had a lot of good...
Remember, J.D. Vance was almost certainly pushed for because he would be the architect of Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation guys knew that Donald Trump wouldn't be principled or intelligent enough to actually orchestrate this plan bit by bit, so they wanted somebody in there who could be their ghoulish little minion, you know? And they chose J.D. Vance, who again did indeed write the forward for the presider of the Project 2025. Like, he is in it, you know?
Public policies, he speaks for himself. And I think what's made the president so mad about the conversation around Project 2025 is anybody saying that an outside group, my understanding is it's a bunch of white papers, it's almost 1,000 pages long, no one speaks for Donald Trump. Not 1,000 pages of white papers, not a conservative.
Notice how he's not denouncing it at all. Notice how he hasn't denounced it, because these are the people who he's on the payroll of. He hasn't denounced it. Trump has. Trump has denounced it. On Truth Social, he has directly said, this is crazy, I don't agree with it. But J.D. Vance can't because this is why he's here. It sounds like a conspiracy, but it's the most obvious thing in the world. J.D. Vance is literally a plant that they put in to ensure that Donald Trump got Project 2025 done. The Republican Party knows that once Donald Trump is dead, which he will be soon because he's like 90 years old, once he's dead, the Republicans have no electorally viable pathway to the White House. Trump was their candle flame. And once he's out, once he's done, that's it. It's going to take them a while to build that kind of momentum behind anyone else. They're not going to be able to unite the broad base that Trump has. They don't have anyone else with the energy. They tried to with DeSantis and failed miserably. Why doesn't he denounce it? For one, he's not very charismatic. For two, he doesn't know how much he can denounce it without upsetting his masters. And for three, I think that he's delusional enough to believe that he can still sell it to the American people.
Nonprofit, not anybody except for the Trump campaign and Donald Trump. Sir?
Yeah, Matt, Leader Telegram based out of Eau Claire. Kind of speaking a little bit more on Project 2025. Wisconsin Democrats worry that Project 2025 will have negative impacts in rural communities like here in Eau Claire, with them stating that the Project 2025 has plans to cut federal loan programs for small farmers. How do you combat this claim?
Well, look, I combat the claim by repeating what I just said, which is that Project 2025 is not Donald Trump's agenda. Donald Trump's agenda is his agenda.
Ask if he specifically disagrees with that element of Project 2025. Because he's not going to disagree. He's not going to say it. He's not going to say, I think that's bad.
agenda, and he speaks for himself. And the Trump agenda from 2017 to 2021 was awfully good for farmers in Wisconsin and everywhere else. This was a guy who fought for Wisconsin farmers to have access to global markets. This is a guy who was willing to fight back against some of the trade practices of other countries that were bad for Wisconsin farmers. This is a guy, Donald Trump, who supported an American energy policy that made it possible for farmers to get the fuel and the fertilizer they needed. His agenda was great for American farmers, and again, he speaks for himself.
Farm subsidies had to go up during Trump's administration to compensate for the losses that they experienced with the trade war that we had with China.
We're going to do the same thing when we get reelected. We're going to make American farmers wealthy and prosperous again, and we're going to do it by Donald Trump doing exactly.
Literally, we're going to make farmers stronger by giving them a massive market to sell their trade in, but also we're going to do a trade war with China.
What Donald Trump wants to do, not any organization that pretends to speak for him but doesn't.
Senator Vance,
yeah.
2 quick questions for you. Circling back on the debate, we know that Kamala Harris, when she was VP, agreed to a debate early August the 13th with CBS. That was before Biden dropped out. Now he's out. We have a new VP pick. Can you give us any guidance on when and where that debate would happen? And then secondly, the weird thing keeps coming up. I know you said that was interns. The first time we heard it on cable news was with Walz. He took that.
Yep, he tried. JD Vance trying to pretend that it was just some Twitter shit posters when it was his direct competitor who came up with this line that like instantly took off.
Insult all the way to the Democrat ticket, clearly convincing Democrats of these claims. What are you going to do to combat the independent voters and prevent them from saying that you're weird?
Yeah, so
it's going great, guys. It's going fantastically. It's going wonderfully. This is exactly the line you want.
August 13th. What is the date today? August
7th.
7th? Okay, so here's my offer to Kamala Harris. If she'd like to do a debate with me on August 13th, I'll do it. Right? We should do that, right? I don't think she wants to anymore because, 1, she probably doesn't even know that she's going to be the Democratic nominee, and 2...
They updated 270 to win? Where? What updates were made?
2, we don't know who the vice presidential nominee is going to be either. He's got a lot of skeletons that are coming out of the closet today, and we'll see if the Democrats pull a bait and switch on Tim Walz or on Kamala Harris, just like they did with Joe Biden. But look,
they desperately want Joe Biden to be. Donald Trump is still doing his like longing. I want Joe Biden to be the guy again. He's still doing it, literally, man. Where is he? Bring me back my Sleepy Joe, the Batman to his Joker. Yeah. What are the chances that crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, whose presidency was unconstitutionally stolen from him from Kamala, Barack Hussein Obama, crazy Nancy Pelosi, shifty Adam Schiff, crying Chuck Schumer, and others on the lunatic left, crashes the Democratic National Convention and tries to take back the nomination, beginning with challenging me to another debate. He feels that he made a historically tragic mistake by handing over the U.S. presidency, a coup, to the people in the world he most hates, and he wants it back now. This is just fanfic. It's pretty sad.
If Kamala Harris wants to honor her commitment and debate on August 13th, let's do it. I'm all game. Now, the second thing I'll say is, look, what Democrats use to...
They're live tweeting it?
Like to have a beer with.
Yeah.
Old saying in politics that what can swing undecided voters in a place like Wisconsin is whether you seem like somebody they would like to have a beer with.
Yeah.
Why would people in Wisconsin want to have a beer with you?
Well, I guess they'd want to have a beer with me because I actually do like to drink beer.
Dog, you're not even human. You're not even a real person. Jesus Christ, dude. I'm never forgiving the Democratic Party for letting it get this close when their opposition is like the most inhuman freaks in the world. Jesus Christ. Well, I guess they'd want to have a beer with me because I do like to drink beer. Even the way I just said it was more human than the way he said it. I added more warmth to that. Then I need to remind myself.
Like somebody they would like to have a beer with.
Yeah.
Why would people in Wisconsin want to have a beer with you?
Well, I guess they'd want to have a beer with me because I actually do like to drink beer, and
they're laughing.
They'd want to have a beer with me because I actually do like to drink beer, and
Those are normal people behind him. Probably not people with whom I have much in common politically, but normal people. These guys probably were told by their boss to show up or get fired, which is illegal, by the way, but it doesn't stop it from happening. They couldn't get like a big venue for him to speak at, so they were literally like, are there any factory owners nearby who donated to the Trump campaign? Hey, do you want to host JD Vance? Can you get some people in the background? Yeah, I'll like promise them a pizza party if they all stand behind and like don't laugh at you or whatever.
Attack Republicans. They're going to attack us on something. They're going to criticize us on something. I think that what makes Donald Trump and I good candidates and a good team is that we're normal guys who want to make this country great again. And we want Americans to be able to live the American dream. I really do think that whatever Tim Walz calls me, I mean, talk about weird with Tim Walz. I don't know if you guys saw the rally yesterday, but afterwards, his wife comes up to him, and Tim Walz does what any normal Midwestern guy would do, seeing his beautiful wife on stage after his speech. He gives her a firm handshake. Right? That's pretty weird. That's pretty.
I am encouraging the Republican Party to please go after Tim Walz on the basis of him not being a good family man. I beg of you. You could not in a million years could you get a photo like this from Trump or from JD Vance. Not in a million years. This photo is more human than anything they could. There's no way.
Pretty weird. When I see my wife after a speech, I give her a hug and a kiss because I'm excited to see her, and she's my wife. These people have no leg to stand on, and I think what's going to happen is they're going to try to call us weird for the next 93 days, and what's going to happen is the American people aren't going to care about it because they don't care about some tagline written by a social media intern. They care about which president and which vice president is going to make their country better and their lives more safe and more secure. That's Donald Trump and I, and I'm proud to carry that message forward for the next 93 days. Ma'am.
NBC Minneapolis. Can you please paint a picture of the future? Grievances aside, what is your winning message?
Oh, I think it's a great future. I mean, our picture for the future, President Trump and I's vision for the future is that if you work hard and play by the rules, whether you went to college, whether you went to law school, or whether you just graduated from high school, you can go and work in a job that's proud, that's meaningful, that pays you a good wage, and allows you to start a family. It's about housing prices that are low enough that whatever your background...
It's really weird when Republicans take family photos because they all stand there like boards of wood holding guns. Yeah, because they're all like country club families with abusive fathers who molest and or beat their children. Like, genuinely, that's the reason why whenever you see their freak family photos where they're all like posing with AR-15s around a Christmas tree, or they're all wearing like suits and slicked back hair and looking like stoically forward, like it's all freak shit. It's all freak shit, and it's taken us too long to just call that out. I've been saying it, you've been saying it, but the Democratic establishment has been gritting its teeth, pretending that we're both like two equal halves of a unified whole, fighting for the same cause, just from different perspectives. They're freaks. They're not like us. I really do think that their ability... I don't know what they're going to run with. Right now, it seems like the only actual thing they have on Tim Walz, and it's not even a real thing, but it's a thing they're going to try to run with, is the veteran thing, where he's a traitor to the United States for only serving for 24 years, you know? Here, hold on. I think this was the most viral post on the subject.
As soon as the shots were... He's back again.
I think, so this is from 2018, I think, his gubernatorial run. The one guy
to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz. He abandoned us, you know. I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just...
Again, for those of you who weren't here for earlier in the stream, Tim Walz was in the National Guard for 24 years, and when his unit was to be deployed to Iraq in 2005, he retired before then. And this guy is like, you're a traitor. You should have led us in Iraq. You should have served more than 24 years. You didn't serve long enough.
As soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
No. He had been planning to retire for a while since then. Why would he go out there and serve in Iraq? Even J.D. Vance, the other VP pick, who did serve in Iraq, but, you know, serve for 4 years and not in a non-combat role, likewise, has said that he was lied to about going into Iraq.
We'll get to Barron's new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier when Barron says Walz' misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018.
So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
The story, yeah, because the story is, yes, Tim Walz did retire from the National Guard after 24 years. Why would we print that? The story is true in that he did, in fact, retire. Like, why would we print your deranged rambling as a member of his unit about how he abandoned his country? Is every veteran who served for less than 25 years then like a traitor? I don't know if that's the ticket you want to run on. The interviewer in this vid, Liz Collins, is the wife of Bob Kroll, president of the Minneapolis Police Union. Police are not beating the allegations.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Well, clearly we're dealing with someone of the highest intellectual caliber here, you know, so I see no reason to take his accusations anything less than seriously.
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrens was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place. I was like, well, for Pete's sake, if this guy quit, and if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that?
You can do that if you want. You are allowed to leave the military. You can do that. It is a job. You can leave the military. You're allowed to retire and then go home to start a family. You can do that. He started a family. He was in for 24 years. He left at 41 years old. That's pretty late to start a family, you know? Like, people say, like, well, he looks like his children's grandpa, not their dad. Yeah, because he was serving in the military for that long. Like, oh, sorry, wait till you're 45 to start a family? You need to go to Iraq? Oh, yeah, lots of really important stuff happening in Iraq, you know? Really important stuff that Tim Walz had to be there for.
If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory? Behrens would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major.
Only 2 years, pussy. You betrayed your country.
All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Behrens says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
But then
What concerns? What concerns would they have to answer? You left after 24 years? What, like, again, what is the accusation?
Fast forward to the election in
Doesn't she look a little bit like the lady from Better Call Saul? I know I'm doing her dirty here. I just think they look a little bit similar. Kimmy Schmidt? No, wait, that's a different one. Kim Pines. Is that the right one? Kim Wexler. Kim Pines. Okay, there we go.
2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he continued to make about his service.
What statement?
It kind of just sat there, you know, when he was a congressman, he bragged that he was a command sergeant, retired command sergeant major. I'm the highest ranking person ever in the House, and, you know, all this.
Command sergeant major. Okay, one second. Okay, so I went to Tim Walz's Wikipedia page. Military service, U.S. Army, Minnesota Army National Guard, Command Sergeant Major. That's the highest enlisted rank in the Army. Yeah, man was in for 24 years. So, okay, it looks like he got it.
Lie that he was telling. The state of
Lie. Continue.
Minnesota came out after 2018, after this was exposed, and they said, well, he can say that he served as a Command Sergeant Major, but he can't say he's a retired one because he's not.
And that's what he was saying.
And
Why? Wait. If you did a job and then you retired from that job, are you not a retired that job? What am I missing? Paperwork reasons? He got the rank, but it was reduced after he retired because he didn't complete some schooling. Oh, so after he left the military, they were like, oh, I'm not going to pretend to understand the bureaucracy of the military. I don't care. So what they're trying to do is get him on a technicality. He served for 24 years, left to go back home to start a family. He served in the role of that he says he served in, but like because of paperwork, he technically got reduced after leaving. Okay.
Saying that, and there was lots of public, lots of cards coming in the mail, for him to be elected. They said right on there he's a retired command sergeant major, just tooting his own horn, just hanging on the coattails of people that actually are command sergeant majors.
But he was that. He was command sergeant major. He was. That's the rank.
That went through all the process and put all the time in.
A spokesperson for the Minnesota National Guard said Walz wasn't able to retire as a command sergeant major since he failed to complete coursework and requirements related to the rank. Verified documents show the Army corrected his service record. Walz was reduced in rank to an E8 Master Sergeant after retirement and his conditional promotion. Alpha News again asked Governor Walz if he's using...
So yeah, it's literally just like a stupid bureaucracy bit. That's it. This means nothing. This is literally nothing. He had that rank, and then afterwards they were like, oh, you retired before you dotted this I and crossed that T. Okay.
The command sergeant major rank on his campaign website for political gain this year. A spokesperson said this has been in the news before and pointed us to a past story where Walz said, quote, normally, this type of partisan political attack only comes from one who's never worn a uniform.
It's stolen valor is really what it is. I don't know of anybody else that's done what he's done.
Jesus Christ, dude. Incredible. This is a nothing burger. Well, what we're looking at right now is almost certainly a right-wing op. This media group, Alpha News, wanted to attack Walz in his gubernatorial campaign and saw this lunatic had been fighting like a one-man war against Walz because daddy left him to go serve in Iraq. Like this is literally just an intra-unit beef that he's been carrying on for decades, and now it's gotten picked up, or it did get picked up 6 years ago by right-wing media, and now they're regurgitating it. It didn't stop Walz from being governor, and I don't think it's going to stop him from being VP, okay? This is like the most... like, I can't wait for J.D. Vance to get there up on stage and blubber out some insult about how he, someone who served for, what was it, 4 years in a non-combat role, how he thinks that Tim Walz is doing stolen valor after serving for 24 years and achieving the rank that he did. He was in Baghdad for 6 months. Wasn't J.D. Vance not like, his role wasn't combat though? He was doing like a journalist work. I thought it said 2 years. Was it only 2 years? Not even 4? He was a journalist?
But we called it The Truth About Tim Walz.
In 2018, Barron's gave the story the full court press.
We retired command sergeants
with a Facebook post.
Majors of the Minnesota National Guard feel it is our duty and responsibility to bring forth the truth as we know it concerning his service record. I put together information on it and I sent it out to every single radio station and newspaper and TV station I could in the state. The bottom line...
Because you're a psycho. Because you're literally like, this guy was over you in the unit and you've never let it go. That happened 13 years before you made the Facebook post. You'll never let it go. And you look kind of like a failure now, to be honest with you. You're kind of like, you look like the stereotype of a bitter asshole now. So, I don't know. Like, I guess you're just carrying that on.
And all of this is gut-wrenching and sad to explain. When the nation called, he quit.
Twin Cities TV stations and the Star Tribune were silent, even after Barron says the newspaper checked it all out. The Star Tribune endorsed...
Because there's nothing to talk about. They keep being like, yeah, these facts were verified by mainstream Minnesota news, and they still wouldn't publish it because the facts are completely uninteresting and not relevant. Alpha News is a right-wing rag. Well, I probably could have told you that. Extreme right-wing, low factual reporting. Nice, nice, nice.
Walz in 2018 for governor.
I don't know how quickly.
Between lockdowns, riots, unchecked crime, and a charred police precinct, Barron's felt he had no choice but again to come forward.
A allowing that to be burned down was just like having the...
Wow, almost makes you feel like this guy might just be a right-wing lunatic with a beef and not somebody who's principally opposed to any specific behavior Tim Walz engaged in vis-a-vis his military career. Like, yeah, you're very principally upset specifically about the misappropriation of a rank due to some bullshit bureaucracy I don't care about. And then you come back at it because of the George Floyd protests? How many times do you think this guy's dropped the hard R? Ballparking it, over under 5,000 in his life. Look at him. Look at him.
Alamo get burned down. It's like, no, you defend that to the last man. You know, if he would have went to Iraq, he'd still be hiding under his desk over there. Because that's just, you know, just the cowardice that I seen portrayed with him.
So the Iraq war is over? What? Hiding under his desk? What? He just doesn't like the guy.
How about when he also comes out and he calls you guys 19-year-old cooks?
I'd take any...
To the sons and daughters who put themselves on the line that night, 19-year-old cooks is nothing so... Okay, hold on. What did he say? 19-year-old cooks. What was the actual statement that was made? Ah, the first link is a Facebook video link for the Minnesota House Republican Caucus. You have to make the noise to make the noise. Why? Where's the noise? Why is it not... Why you...
I don't think the mayor knew what he was asking for. He wanted the National Guard, and what does that mean? I think to the mayor, yes, I think it's a perception. I'm certainly not questioning that. I think the mayor said, I request the National Guard. Whew, I'm out. This is great. We're going to have massively trained troops. No, you're going to have 19-year-olds who are cooks in some cases. And what are we going to do and how are we going to use them?
That's it? He literally served in the National Guard. Like, he's speaking from 24 years of experience. And also, yes, what, are you kidding? Do you think the median soldier is like 35? What do you, yeah. This was literally his life.
19-year-old cook before I'd go to war with him. I don't know how he could even utter such a statement. I mean, it's just...
Why? What's wrong with it? Are you just like mad because you're mad?
That's just absolutely sad.
Why?
So this election year, it's all built up again to Barron's new grain bin message.
He called Jacob Fry an abject failure. So I was like...
This guy, this fat hog we're looking at is such an obsessive freak that on his own farm, he got this plastered on, I don't know, whatever silo this is or whatever. I'm not a farmer. I don't care. Farming's not real. Absolutely deranged behavior.
Like, you know, that's what he is.
Walz is a traitor, also made a return.
And the last one I put together, he said it himself too, as well, if they don't like my job, they can vote me out. So I wrote, vote him out. We need to vote him out.
Probably not even his farm. Yeah, maybe. I don't really know. It's hard to tell. Out there in the Midwest. Anyway, that's currently the best that they have on this guy. Literally. This one freak show. Yeah, it's trending right now. Stolen Valor. This is the best they're going to go for, I think. I don't think they have anything. I don't know what else they could possibly summon for this. Walz is a traitor from the party that attempted an insurrection. Yeah. I can't believe Republicans would just lie like that. I know, it's so uncharacteristic of them. Oh, I saw this.
A little bit different here. You've been criticized as being a little too serious, maybe angry sometimes. What makes you smile? What makes you happy?
First of all, love the fact that this question is apparently coming from Charlie Day. You know, I don't know what shenanigans led to him and the gang getting involved in politics again, but it's not the first time.
Well, I smile at a lot of things, including bogus questions from the media, man. I mean, look.
It was the softest underhand throw imaginable. And you hit yourself in the nuts with the baseball bat. Hey, JD Vance, so people have said you're weird, but let's give you an opportunity to demonstrate a bit of humanity. What makes you smile? Stupid questions from fools, that's what. Ha ha.
I think if you watch a full speech that I give, I actually I'm having a good time out here. And
if you look at me, is it not apparent that I have fun? Does it not look like I'm having a good time?
Enjoying this, but look, sometimes you got to take the good with the bad. And right now, I am angry.
It's the softest pitch anyone's ever thrown. Okay, we're talking. They're throwing like one of those fuzzy felt balls you throw in the dryer to knock your clothes around to get them nice and dry, and he still couldn't hit it. Incredible, incredible. They're such freaks, man. Can you imagine fumbling a question like that? All he would have had to do was say, what makes you happy? Spending time with my lovely wife, of course. Like, that's not even like a 0 IQ. You get that one for free. That's like a default one if you have a wife or kids, like same with the kids, right? But he couldn't do it. He could not do it. Why though? Because they're freaks. They're not human. They're demon people. You think I joke when I say shit like this? Look, okay, capital can make you inhuman. Being a fascist politician and a stooge for corporate interests does not a human make, okay? I'm really sorry. This is what happens when you spend your entire... Like, if you take a look at any element of these guys' lives and personalities, why would you expect them to act like normal people, you know? Their ideology is anti-love. That's real. It's not a joke. They're not pursuing a sensible policy goal in the wrong way. They hate life. They hate you. It's a death cult. They want you dead. Will you being dead improve their lives? No. They just want you dead for its own sake. Drill, baby, drill. Ignore climate change. How many billions need to die? It doesn't really matter. Who cares? Nothing matters. They're anti-love. Of course they're going to be freaks. Of course they're weird and stilted. Of course basically every Republican politician looks like some up monstrosity and they can't carry with their charisma. That's why they like Donald Trump so much, because Donald Trump has two things they don't have going for him. For one, show presence. Man ran a reality TV show. I'm saying he knows how to work a camera. That is true. And two, there is an element of humanity within Donald Trump that does not exist in many of his compatriots. And it comes from the fact that he wasn't raised in this political environment. It comes from the fact that he's, for the most part, a classic 1980s New York businessman who's concerned with doing coke, pedophilia, and cheating on his wives. Now, those things are pretty monstrous, but there's a kind of... I don't know what you would call it, a kind of like callous disregard for humanity there, a sort of anti-villain person, or sorry, anti-hero, like roguish tendency to it. I'm not defending it. They're monstrous people, but it's different from this modern kind of Republican. You know what I mean? It's very different. There's a reason Donald Trump can rizz up a crowd and basically no one else in the right can, you know? It's a different kind of antisociality, and it's unique to him. It's not common anymore. It's unique to him. He has fun up there. That's also important. No one else has fun up there. He has fun up there. And for these reasons, he is the flag bearer of the Republican Party. When he's out, they're out. No one else can carry the torch. Ron DeSantis was an experiment by certain people within the GOP to determine whether or not they could summon a comparable energy from a puppet. Donald Trump is not a puppet. He's very difficult to control. Every bit of evidence we have from his 2016 administration indicates that. He's actually... Not to say he's like, you know, breaking the will of the GOP. He just kind of does what he wants. He's not bright enough. He's not enough of a strategist. He doesn't think forward enough. He's obstinate. He's stubborn. He's disagreeable. He gets angry easily. He's very emotional. He's not easy to control. They want a puppet. So they tried Ron DeSantis, who is very easy to control, shockingly easy to control. And what happened? He's a laughingstock, and he bent the knee. Everyone bent the knee. Nikki Haley, I think, is the closest they have to any, like, reasonable pathway out. But Nikki Haley will never summon the voters that Donald Trump has. Largely because Nikki Haley isn't hateful in the ways she would need to be. Also, she's a woman, and they don't like women.